All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our info session that will be all about IT programs. So we have about 7 IT programs represented today, so we're going to get underway so everyone has a chance to share information about their program. I'm just going to start with a couple of important acknowledgements. NSCC is located in Mi'kma'ki, the unceded territory and traditional homeland of the Mi'kmaq Nation. Our relationship is based on a series of peace and friendship treaties between the Mi'kmaq Nation and the Crown, dating back to 1725. As treaty beneficiaries, we recognize that we are all treaty people. NSCC also recognizes the African Nova Scotians as a distinct group who arrived here 400 years ago. From that time on, they've contributed to the infrastructure and economic wealth of the towns and cities they helped to build, but from which they could not benefit. Let us learn more about how our respective communities were shaped by the historical contributions of African Nova Scotians to Mi'kma'ki. All right, so just a couple housekeeping items before we get underway. If this is your first webinar with us, welcome. You'll see like a control panel on the side of your screen that you can use to ask any questions. We won't be able to see or hear you throughout the duration, so you can use that question box to ask anything throughout the info session, anything that might pop up about any of the programs we'll cover. If you have any questions that might be more personal in nature, so questions maybe related to your personal application, you can email recruitment@nscc.ca. That's the email address in yellow, and we'll have that at the end of the info session as well. And today is May 15th, 2025. So if you are watching this after the fact, just know that information may have changed, but up till today, this information is accurate. The most accurate information will be on our website. So if anything changes, just be sure to check our website first. All right, so we have a great panel today. Again, like I said, we have 7 programs represented. So I'm just going to get our faculty members to introduce themselves, and we'll start with Ron from cybersecurity.
Just take a second to unmute. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ron McLeod. I'm lead faculty member for cybersecurity at NSCC. This is obviously not my real voice, and you won't be seeing my image. Those are 2 tenets of cyber that we'll talk about a little bit when it comes time for me to introduce you to the program.
Great, and we'll go with Marie next.
Hi, I'm Marie Dutka, and I am the lead faculty at IT Campus for the IT Systems Management and Security program.
Great, and then Paul.
Hi, my name is Paul Street. I'm the lead faculty for the IT Database Administration program, also the Leeds campus.
Great, and George.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm George Campanis, and I'm the lead faculty for data analytics.
And Darren.
Hi there, Darren Andrews. I'm the lead program faculty in IT programming at Waterfront Campus in Sydney.
Great, and Sean.
Hi, Sean Morrow, lead faculty of IT web programming up in Truro Campus.
All right, and finally, David.
Hi, everyone. I'm David Beaton. I'm the lead faculty for the IT Generalist program here at the Strait Area campus.
Awesome. So you can see we have lots of experienced faculty here with us today. So they will be coming back with us in a couple of moments to talk about their particular programs. My name is Jessica, and I'm a student recruitment coordinator with NSCC. So I'm happy to answer questions as well, although the real knowledge here today lies with the faculty. So just a quick little snapshot of NSCC and what kind of differentiates us from other post-secondary options in Nova Scotia. We're very driven for graduate employment. So I know our faculty will touch on this a bit, but you're going to be learning skills and hands-on knowledge for all of the programs at NSCC. So we're really equipping you to enter the workforce after you graduate. We have locations throughout Nova Scotia, and we'll touch on that in a minute. Specialized programs, so you'll see, you may have thought that IT programming was just one program, but we have 7+ programs. So we have graduate certificates as well that aren't included today, but just to let you know that they are a possibility. Small class sizes, instructors with real world experience. A lot of our instructors today have come from the IT industry. Well-equipped facilities and technology, and portfolios as well. So just kind of a snapshot of NSCC. Once you become a student, you'll have access to a lot of supports, whether that's with accessibility, personal and career counseling, culturally relevant support. So it is just a very supportive environment at NSCC. So we do have 14 campuses, like I mentioned. Those circled in yellow are the campuses represented today, or where you can take programs that we'll cover today. Not every program is available at every campus, but these are the ones where you will find IT and data analytic programs. So those in yellow, including our eCampus. So we do have a couple of programs that are offered strictly online. So just a little bit about the programs themselves. This is kind of an umbrella approach to the programs that are represented today. The admission requirement for all of these programs is just a high school diploma, so there are no prerequisite courses that are required. All of these programs are 2 years in length, and the credential that you would receive after you finish them is a diploma. So the delivery is a little bit different for each program. So if you find one today that kind of piques your interest, you can go on our website to see how it is delivered. But it can be in person, which is totally in a classroom, synchronous online, blended, and then blended distributed. So blended just means a mix of in-person and online, and blended distributed means that you would be, say, sitting in a classroom, say in Digby, and your teacher is at the Burridge campus in Yarmouth. So you're learning at the same time as both, but it's being distributed to you in a different area. All of these programs, with a couple of exceptions, are postgraduate work permit eligible. So that could be of interest to our international guests today. So the exception would be the programs that are offered mostly online, because those aren't eligible for a postgraduate work permit. So we're going to jump right into our program-specific slides now. We're going to start with IT web programming. And we're just going to, each faculty is going to take a chance to just kind of sell you their program, tell you what differentiates their program from other IT programs. And if you have any questions, like I said, you can use your question box and we'll get to those at the end of the session. But I'll pass it over to Sean.
All right, thank you very much. Everybody can hear me okay, I'm assuming, yep. So we'll just get right into the program. So the first point here, obviously IT web programming is all about building web applications. We really dive into cutting edge web apps and frameworks, and really we answer that question of a lot of students are coming in, they really have no idea what goes into these web applications that they use every day on mobile devices and on their desktops and everything else. So that's really what we dive into, what we spend 2 years learning. We span over loads of different technologies and frameworks and development tools and put them to work. So it's really cutting edge. We're really diving into it. In the process of doing that, obviously, our goal is to actually build complex web apps, and we use lots of different techs. And it's really just learning all those moving parts under the hood. That's really what this program is all about. The workload is, it's busy. It's definitely 100% full-time commitment. We have seen students be successful having a part-time job at the same time. It is possible, but you can easily, this could easily be your full-time gig for the entire 2 years, not counting, of course, summer in between. So it's definitely a busy program. The way we actually learn is very project-driven. We start off with sort of solo projects to kind of tone your coding skills and get you up to speed. We assume no knowledge of coding, like it's 100% zero to hero. So we're assuming you've never coded at all. And so we start off with a lot of solo projects, kind of build that confidence. And then we eventually move on into more collaborative projects, particularly in the second year where you work on larger scale web apps with other classmates. There is tests for the odd course, potentially some first-year courses, but we don't do a lot of tests. It's a lot of project-based learning because that's essentially what industry is. You're not meant to know stuff really off the top of your head. We use a lot of resources when we're developing. Your typical days are filled with loads of new learning and lots of practice. Coding is a craft. It takes practice and time to get good at it. So we do lots of labs and lessons where you sort of learn how to essentially learn the concepts of web application development, and then loads of projects and daily major projects to kind of practice those concepts, and then of course build that confidence I mentioned earlier. In terms of what we graduate, I just want to make this clear because I'm going first here. So later on, you're going to hear about the IT programming programs. So the two are kind of very, very similar in sync. Our goals in both programs is really all about graduating a strong coder. We want you to come out the other end as a strong coder. So what ends up quite often being the question is, well, which one do I take? What do I take? And it really just depends on what type of application you want to develop to become a good coder. That's really what it is. IT programming grads are working in all kinds of fields in coding, and so are IT web programming grads. So it just depends on where you want to play. And I think that's it for me.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks.
And we'll move on to Ron next to talk about cybersecurity.
Yes, in my really strange voice. So you should know that we have two tenets in cyber. One is to never connect your image to your employer. That is to guard against OSINT attacks in our field. And secondly, never to have a sample of your voice available online. That would include your voicemail as well. So you won't find a sample of my voice or an image of me that connects me to my employer. So all of our graduates trained for that. So this is a very hands-on field. It's a very hands-on program. You will be practicing all of the techniques that you learn. There are small theoretical components to each. So we may, for example, study how a protocol works, and then you would have to implement that protocol. The workload is extremely intense. You will have probably one day per week, someday on the weekend, to get away from this. But for the rest of the time, if you're not in class, eating, sleeping, or commuting, you will be studying and doing schoolwork. And you will do that for 2 years. So it doesn't bode well to have a part-time job or other interests. You will be trained to deliver to your employer on the first day that you show up. And that differentiates from a lot of other programs where our people show up and they start practicing their skills on day one. We train for military intelligence, civilian intelligence, and private security professionals, and you will learn practice techniques and applications in all those fields. We have a very special relationship with Canadian Armed Forces. We get our accreditation from that organization, and we are one of the highest accredited programs in the country. As a result, we always have active duty military personnel in the classroom taking our training, or prospective military personnel. If you are a current forces member, then they will accept our training in lieu of 2 years of your military training. You still have to do your basic training, and you have to do an additional 1 year of top secret work for them. But for the rest of the time, we are equivalent to the training that you would receive in the military. Now, this is unfortunately one of the downsides of our field, if you can think of it that way, because the people that we deal with, our adversaries, simply would have no hesitation to harm you or your loved ones should you become known to them or cause too much problem for them. You have to be prepared to deal with threats to your own personal safety as well as those of your family. And you have to be able to achieve a Canadian secret security clearance. So now that is to work in the field, not to come to our program. But I want to make it clear that once you graduate from our program, most of our jobs will require at least a Canadian secret clearance. To get that, you should be a Canadian citizen in the country for 10 years and with a clean criminal record. These are full-day classes. You generally are on average about 6 hours a day in the class with a 1 hour off for lunch. And then you're going to spend probably another 6 hours each day doing independent study. So it is a very, very heavy workload. But most importantly, we work in extremely high stress, high anxiety situations. Most people that are talking to you are yelling at you, and it is the worst day in their life. In some cases, people's lives may depend upon your behavior and your skill level. So we want to make sure that you're able to deal with all of those environments. If you are not, and some people are not, then I would encourage you to look elsewhere for a program. This is probably the most high stress employment outcome short of critical engineering that you might come across. So that's it for me. This voice changer creates echoes in my mic, so if my voice seems to be a little stilting, that's why. But I will sit on the side and address any questions that you might have at a later time.
Great, thanks, Ron. That was I like the honest tips. All right, next we will do Marie with IT Systems Management and Security.
Hi, so systems management and security, this course often has a lot of confusion around it. What do systems management people do? Where does that security come into play? We have cybersecurity, we have all these other IT professions. Well, we like to say we're kind of that end-to-end tech expert. We are the program that supports all the other people in IT, from the programmers to the cybersecurity folks. At some point, they all need systems to work on. All those systems need to be able to talk to each other, to communicate together, and we are the people that make that happen. We don't cover cybersecurity, so I don't want there to be any confusion. The security we look at is the security within the systems, kind of within your organization. A great example is cybersecurity. Our experts are working diligently to keep you safe. But when somebody gets in, and we all know that's not an if, that's a when they get in, we are the folks that need to be able to tell you where they went, what they touched, what was compromised, and to identify that they are even there in the fastest way possible. So our security is looking at making the systems, listening to the cybersecurity, but making the systems as tough as we can, as hard as we can for you to be able to get in, but then also watching all the doors and entrances and windows and making sure if that happens, we're there to identify that and notify that right away. We're also making sure that everybody has the access they need in order to do the jobs that they need to do. So one of the things that means for systems management people is we're everywhere. We're in the companies that have programmers, we're in the companies that don't have programmers. We have students who work for security companies. We have students who work for the automotive industry as systems management, because in this day and age, everybody's got some kind of technology linked to their organization, and we're the people who keep that up running and safe for them to be able to use. One of the things I want to mention about this program, similar to what you're going to hear about a lot of them, we kind of do a typical day, an 8:30 to 4:30. That might not be all active classes. Some of that is going to be open time for you to be working on your assignments or labs. We do a lot of, as Sean said earlier, we do a lot of project work as well, a lot of group work, a lot of teamwork, but we also do a lot of hands-on with actual physical equipment. We work in data centers and so on. Because we work with actual physical equipment, switches, servers, data centers, all that kind of environment, that is not stuff you have access to in your home environment, which means students in this program, it's very typical for you to have to do a lot of time on the actual campus while you're learning. When we're learning to run a cable or trace out a cable, that has to happen on site. So there is a lot of evenings and weekends that our labs for the systems management and security folks will be filled with students on site working on their assignment. The college is great. The hours for the college are actually really good. Most campuses are open till about 9 at night during the week and 8 on weekends, and that is open for students to be here on site working on your courses, working on your assignments. We do have some courses that have a lot of quizzes. We do have some courses that have exams built in, but those aren't always what you think of. For me, when I do exams, my exams are usually hands-on exams. So it's not a here, you know, do a doc or write an exam against a piece of paper or online or something. We're giving you actual, see if you can accomplish this task, see if you can set this up, explain it to me, and so on. So it does look a little different than what you expect an exam to look like, because we are very hands-on with the physical technology. A lot of your courses are very hands-on in this particular program. And I think that's about good for me. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Marie. All right, next up we have IT database administration, and that will be with Paul.
Oh, good afternoon. I think my colleagues have quite happily covered what the workload's like. Yes, it's busy. Yes, it starts at 8:30, which is a bit of a killer for some people. However, as we asked one of our students at the beginning of this week when we actually met as a project, what were one of the things that they advice they could give? They said, treat this as if it is your job. This is your 8:30 to 4:30, Monday to Friday work, and it is. Now, thankfully, IT database administration, just like IT systems management and security, is one of the linchpins in nearly every company or organization, because every company and organization nowadays wants data. They want that information because that's what data is. So they're going to need a database administrator. They're going to need somebody to create a system that is workable, manage, sort, maintain, and look after that data, especially because in today's day and age, you know, we have data coming from everywhere, not just from people. We have it coming from the internet, coming from IoT, coming from traffic cams, you name it, they're coming from everywhere. So everybody needs this feature. Now, a database administrator, they usually start by gathering what their companies, what their organizations, what their users need. They then take that information and actually make it workable. And I'm sure every single person knows what it's like filling in a bad form. It's horrible. So DBAs will go in and they will create the back end, make it look pretty, make it work. So you don't actually have to fill in half of it. You can just pick and choose whether it's a date from a calendar or a province or a country. That's what they do. They maintain this, make it workable. They also get involved though in the minutiae of, well, hang on a minute, let's make it so that it's accessible. And this is where we talk about security. You've heard from both Ron and Marie about security. They look after the physical security, the cyber security, while the data administrators look after the data security. Who should be able to access and look at your name, your address, your telephone number, your social insurance number, your health information? And that is all more and more now legislated, which is fantastic, because it also means that more and more we have backing, and we also have the necessary procedures and policies in place where we know how long we need to keep our data for, and you're responsible for it and making sure it happens. Yes, there's going to be a lot of hard work, and especially because you've got to make sure that you document all of this. You know, it's no good just saying, oh yeah, it works. No, we need to make sure we dot our I's, cross our T's, and make sure that if anything happens, this data is available. We live in an age now where everything is 24/7, 365. You want access to your emails 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You also want access to your websites. You want access to your customer base. This isn't anything new. It's been around now for 20+ years. but it's getting more and more prevalent for everything we do, and everybody wants it. So that's part of your job, making sure that it's available. So looking out, what do you do when something goes wrong? Well, you make sure you've got alternatives, and that's what DBAs do. Highlights. It's fun. I was joking actually with some group students this morning, and I was saying, seriously, it can sound boring, it can sound dry, dull, but it's not, because it's all about what you're doing, how you're doing it, and making it usable. And that's the key component. It's you make it what you want. Yes, you can go onto some websites and type in a form and think, oh my goodness, this is worse than watching paint dry. But it's how you take that information then and present it and allow your organization to use it. And that's what DBAs do. So we need more DBAs. And yes, I am banging a drum here, but it's definitely going to be more and more necessary. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Paul. I'm learning a lot, so I know our attendees probably are as well. And then we'll move to IT data analytics, and that one is with George.
Okay, so I think, so I just have a few questions that I'm going to answer that I'm assuming that a lot of the students are interested, or prospective students are interested in the answer. So what does a data analyst do? So a data analyst typically focuses on data. Paul's also saying with the DBA. So I tend to think of it in kind of three ways. Information input, storing the information or managing the data, and then output of the data. As a data analyst, for the most part, you will need to know all three of those areas, how to build the forms, how to build scripts that can download data. You'll need to know how to store the data in a database. And then you'll also need to know how to leverage the data or visualize the data. So all those three elements are part of what a data analyst does. Okay. So generally speaking, you'll need to know how to program, or you'll be doing some form of programming. Okay, so Python is probably the most commonly used language. So you'll learn to code in Python in the program. You'll learn to code in R as well. And so there's lots of tools besides that we'll be using, things like Power BI. But generally speaking, the focus is on the data. Everything is about the data. So once you graduated, will you be able to find a job? I think that's probably the most important question, or one of the most important questions that you have. And the answer is for sure. The data is ubiquitous and pervasive. So it's everywhere. As you know, data are collected on your phone, data connected are collected in your car. It's everywhere. So we're in an age where having data is great, but the question is, how do you use that data? So most of you are probably familiar with ChatGPT and generative AI. So you ask a question to ChatGPT and it gives you an answer. The reason that that's possible is because there's a lot of data that's been collected and it's able to answer these questions. Data is at the heart of what everything that is happening right now. And so I would encourage folks to really look at a program that in some way is influenced by data. Okay. Next question is, so finding a job, you can go on Indeed, you can look at the jobs available. You can expect a starting wage would be something around 53,000. And once you've been working as a data analyst for a few years, you can expect to earn around 94,000 a year. That's what you can expect. So my students that have graduated now, this particular group that's graduating in June, I would say the vast majority of them actually have jobs, have been offered jobs. And I'd also say that some of them have actually, I think 2 of the students have actually had to choose between 2 jobs. So there are definitely possibilities for work. And that is a crucial question, I think, that most of you have, is can you actually find a job once you've completed the 2-year diploma? So what will you learn? Again, you'll learn how to visualize data. You also learn about machine learning. So AI is quite an interesting topic right now. And I think there's only 2 programs at NSCC that in fact have courses directly related to AI. One is the data analytics program. There's actually a machine learning course that you take in your last year. And you'll actually learn how to do predictive analytics. Things like, what will the house price be like next year? Will it go up? Will it go down? Things like that. So I think the other one is the graduate certificate, AI graduate certificate, that's offered to folks that already have a degree or a diploma. I do believe that some of the other programs do have some form of AI, so neural networks is probably included in some of the programs, but the data analytics is one of the only ones that actually have a dedicated class to teach you about machine learning and AI. Okay, so you also learn about statistics, you learn about data visualization, you'll learn to program, and you'll learn about the cloud as well. So what's the difference between a data analyst, the data analytics program, and the database administration program? Fundamentally, the difference lies in the focus. The focus for DBA or database administration program is more around the system, the server itself, and how the data is stored. Whereas for the data analytics program, it focuses more on programming and actually visualizing the data, building predictive models, like predicting, as I said, I don't know, the stock price of Apple tomorrow. What is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? So we look at the data and we try to present the data in simple to understand formats like graphs and these kinds of things as well. And lastly, why would you choose the DA program? I think there's many reasons. Not least the fact that it's blended, I think is a good option. I'm not sure about the other programs, how many of them are actually blended, but blended essentially means that half the classes are online and the other half is actually on campus. So of the 5 days, 2 of them will be virtual. Generally, theory is taught within those 2 days, and then you'll be in a lab and there'll be hands-on work for the remaining 3 days. Machine learning is obviously a hot topic, and that's taught in data analytics. If you're interested in AI and machine learning, I recommend you consider the data analytics program. Also, there's an element of creativity in data analytics, in building charts, answering questions, which makes it appealing as well. That's there.
Great, thanks, George. It's nice to hear that the graduates for this program are in demand. All right, I see Darren's already ready to take over. Oops, sorry, go back there. IT programming.
Sure. Going to build on what Sean and George were just kind of saying. The 3 programming programs that we have at the campus or at the college really prepares you for kind of entry-level IT programming job. So the difference is the focus. So with Sean, the focus there is on web and web applications. With George, it's the data analytics, so you're going to be focusing more on visualization and processing data. For us, it's more on Windows desktop and mobile apps. We do have database courses. We do have web courses in our curriculum. There's no such thing as developing a mobile app without having web data interchange and working with databases in some fashion. So we do dive a bit deeper into some of the more complex programming language paradigms. We get a bit more into memory management, data structures. We get into design patterns and algorithms. So we get a little bit deeper into the weeds with some of the programming concepts. As everybody has been telling you, the workload is heavy. We do have 24 hours a week in our program, usually between 8:30 and 4:30, depending on campus faculty availability. Sometimes it might go a little bit longer. You might have a mix of blended, depending on your campus. But for the most part, you can kind of count on 8:30 to 4:30 as being your working hours. You'll kind of find out a couple of months before your term starts if you go into your My NSCC. The campuses usually try, or the scheduling tries, is they try to lock things down a few months so you can make your plans. However, just be aware that the schedule you see before you actually start in September might have some slight adjustments to it. And a lot of times that comes from faculty adjustments, particularly at some of the more rural campuses where you have some faculty challenges as far as coverage all of material. So the best thing is if you're looking to do things outside, plan around outside of school, wait until you're here. That's one of the recommendations that I'm going to make here. We do have, I haven't heard this mentioned, but several of our programs do have a common first semester. So we do recognize that when you're coming into our programs, whether it be the systems management networking, the database, the web, the programming, you may have an idea of what you're looking for, but by the time you finish your first semester, you may find your interests are pulling you in another direction. So in your first semester, for the courses that have that common first semester, you get a programming course, you get a networking course, you get a web course, you get a database course, and you get a Windows course. And depending on availability at your campus, you may be able to switch from one program into another one without basically losing any time. So you still be able to be on your 2-year track. Now, as you get deeper into subsequent semesters, once you are in your program stream or your program concentration here, you will end up getting deeper into the core concepts of that particular topic. So we get deeper into programming concepts, the deeper you get into your 2 years. So we start off, you can expect a large number of small assignments as you are getting introduced to topics, because as it was mentioned earlier, we really assume that you don't have any programming experience when you're coming into the program. So we end up with a lot of smaller assignments, but there's going to be a lot of them. As you get further into your program, the number of assignments you're going to have are going to drop down dramatically, but the amount of work, so we kind of aim for comprehensive projects as you get deeper into the program, so you'll kind of transition into the more integrated projects as you get to the end of your program. You will have some opportunity to do some work classes when you are taking your program. It's not all theory. So that's kind of your opportunity to have one-on-one time with your instructors outside of asking questions during a lecture, or a faculty member be able to actually sit down with you and talk a little bit more deeply about the problems that you're experiencing or questions that you may have. But we do stress you will be taking homework home with you. There will be the expectation of doing work outside of the classroom. Another thing that you really should have on your radar is that assignments have set due dates. They are there because a lot of times material that we are covering, we need to know if we have to cover it in a different way. Do we have to review something? And those assignment due dates are there because we're often prepping the next material that we are going to cover. So due dates are going to be something that will be enforced. Tests, some programs have more tests than other programs. There'll generally be a mix of theory, tell me what you know, and there'll be a mix of practical, show me what you can do. You'll be learning how to program in about 5 or 6 different programming languages over the course of your 2 years with us. But the most important skill that you're going to get out of the program is how to adapt. So if there's one skill to concentrate on, it's learning how you learned to learn this last language, because you will use those same processes to learn the next language. The programming language that you're exposed to by graduation may not be the programming language that you're going to experience in the workplace. The programming language you start with in the workplace may not be the same programming language you're going to be doing in a year's time. There is a dramatic amount of change in this industry. So if I can leave you with a piece of advice, the one piece of advice I will give you is to keep in mind that you're going to get out of the program what you put into the program. So I encourage students often to find a hobby project. So something outside of what you're going to do for classwork. So what that will do is you will control that project from beginning to end. And it will also be something that you'll be able to talk with some degree of passion when you go to an interview and trying to distinguish yourself from your peers. So that's everything for me. Good luck and hope to see you next year.
Great, thanks, Darren. I'm sure it's reassuring for people to hear that we are not expecting IT experts to be showing up day one. So yeah, I'll pass it over to David. He'll finish us off with IT Generalist.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining our session today. I'm not going to really repeat a lot of what everyone had said. I think everyone pretty much touched on many aspects of IT. But I will say that IT Generalist is more of a, hence the name, it's a general IT program. It's great for students that are not sure what they want to do. For example, maybe they want to be an IT programmer. Maybe they want to get into networking, maybe servers, things like that. But they're not quite sure where they want to, what area they want to go into. So hence the quote, it's the jack of all trades, master of none. Just to give you an interesting sidebar here, I worked here at NSCC as an IT technician for 13 years, way back in the 2000s. So I see this program very similar in that due to the nature of my previous job here at NSCC working as an IT technician, in a particular role like that at a campus, you kind of touch on different areas. Networking, you might be troubleshooting switches, programming VLANs, you might be standing up new servers, joining the server to a Active Directory domain. On the security side, there might be a little bit of security, tightening up things. But I want to do caution, this is not like the cybersecurity program. We only touch, high level aspect of security, and just like Marie mentioned there a while back. So if you're not sure what industry you want to work your way into, IT Generalist is a good starting point. We cover on the networking side, we cover Cisco technology. We have racks with switches on the racks that students can program. We also have physical computers that they can install different operating systems and basically create a little network domain. So it's all very hands-on. We also teach a little bit of database management, SQL commands, things like that. On the programming side, my colleague teaches some languages like Python, object-oriented programming, and then he also works with DevOps. We have a capstone course that's the end of the 2-year program, and it kind of ties into everything. So for this year, we're working on a little rideshare app. Traveling is one of the challenges in small areas. And by the way, we're located in beautiful Cape Breton at Port Hawkesbury. So if you like, the beautiful scenery of Cape Breton, I'll just make a little plug there for that. So yeah, IT Generalist is a stepping stone, you know, for people. It gives you the ability, you know, the beauty of it is it gives you enough fundamental that you could work your way into an area of specialization, for example, cybersecurity, or maybe you want to go into programming full time. We've had students that would come here that weren't sure, and then once they went through the program, they ended up enrolling in other campuses to be more specialized. As for our classes, we do, as Marie and some others mentioned, we do utilize a lot of hands-on. Hands-on is the best way to learn. We have physical and virtual labs, so you can use both technology. You can work with physical when you're on site. At home, you can use remote access and remote into our internal platform to do homework, for example. So the workload is fairly similar to the rest of the program. Just to borrow Darren's quote earlier, you do get what you put into it. So if you work very hard, you study, you ask questions, you do the hands-on, you will be a successful student, and you will most likely, you know, be more successful in gaining employment. Our classes are Monday to Thursdays. We try to leave Fridays open, and that's not to say that it's a day off. Most times that's the day dedicated for students to work on their assignments during the week or various projects, and while we're preparing for the following week. So yeah, be prepared to spend, you know, 30, 40 hours a week. And just to mention, someone else mentioned this as well, I'll use the same anecdote that it's you have to treat it like a full-time job. 2 years, you know, is not a very long time in the grand scheme of things, especially when you get, you know, later years like myself in my early 50s. 2 years is not a very long time, and so I really encourage students to dedicate as much time as possible to make the most out of it. Again, we do projects. There are assignments. There will be some readings, hands-on labs. Let's see. Just looking at my notes here. We do have students that are successful with gaining employment. We had students working in the health authority in different aspects. Some are working in security. Some of them are working in systems and desktops. We had students working for the RCMP. We have a student right now working for National Defense. So yeah, there's lots of opportunities out there for employment. So just to give you a real simple, just to kind of summarize this all up, some of the courses we teach is, for example, Windows administration. You'll be learning Windows 11, how to manage it and all the internals of it. Server, we will be teaching Windows Server 2025. You'll learn how to install Active Directory and how to manage identity and provide deploy services. We also, not only do we teach technical courses, but we also teach some courses that are I would consider sort of business administrative related. For example, project management is one course that students enjoy because, you know, depending on where you work in IT, chances are at some point in your career, you will most likely end up on a project. So it's good to it's good to learn various topics like project charters and what a work breakdown structure is and things like that. We teach DevOps. We teach service desk course, which is very a good skill to have. You want to have the ability to learn problem management, incident management, change management, things like that. I think that's pretty much it. I think the biggest takeaway for our program is that you know, if you have a desire to be working in the IT industry, but you're not quite sure where you want to or what program you want to take, this is sort of a taste test, if you will, where you can try different various IT disciplines, and you know, eventually you'll probably know what you like. We'd have students that will diverge. You know, they would come in wanting to be an IT programmer, and then they realized, you know, networks and system is more of what they like or they enjoy, and vice versa. So I think that's everything. I'll hand this back over to Jessica, and I'll stand by if anybody has any questions. Thank you.
Great.
Jessica, can I just add one thing that's kind of about all the programs?
For sure, yeah.
I just want to mention to students or prospective students, when you're looking at these different courses, and we're all giving you all the technical, what can you do when you get out in industry? I want to just point out the big difference between, or it's not a big difference, but a difference between a lot of these data administrations, cybersecurity, systems management and security, and even the IT generalists. A lot of what you will do in industry is going to be front facing, working directly with clients and customers, putting out fires, troubleshooting issues. It's going to be very fast paced. You're going to be very interactive. If you ever see a systems management office, there's nobody sitting in chairs because we're all out doing things in the field. Things are changing on the fly. You have to be able to learn and grow and adapt very quickly. As you know, one day this is the working technology, the next day it's something different, or we're forced into something, or somebody puts out an update, now things aren't working. Versus if you look at some of the other programs, the web program, the data analytics, the programming in general, that's a different type of profession. That's a different, not that they're not changing technologies and they have to learn and grow and troubleshoot, but you're more likely to see them sitting in a group or sitting behind their desks or in a cubicle as they busily work away. So it is something to think about what kind of profession you want to get into. Some of these administration ones, very fast paced, very active. You're going to be up on your feet and out doing stuff all the time, meeting with people, putting out fires. As Ron said, you're not always dealing with people when they're at their best, when something goes horribly wrong, and that can look a little different in some of the programming courses. So there is kind of a difference where those two courses kind of lie. And I just want to put that out to think about who you are as a person and what you enjoy. If you're very, you know, somebody who's not comfortable dealing with conflict, dealing with somebody when they're upset, or you know, prefer that kind of quiet space, that can have a big impact on where you might fit within some of these courses.
No, I really appreciate that, Marie. It's nice to like summarize everything we've just heard. Okay, I'm going to go through the next couple of slides quickly because I know we have some questions and I do want to keep this to just an hour. So after graduation, if you take any of these programs, there's a couple of options. For these programs, a lot of our students jump right into a career. As we said, our graduates are in demand. There's an opportunity to continue your studies at NSCC. We talked a little bit about graduate certificates and how those are kind of like building blocks. You can come back and take one of those. Or you can continue your studies at university. So all of the programs we mentioned today are part of what we call an articulation agreement. So you have two universities that will give you a full 2-year credit towards an undergraduate degree. So for Dalhousie, it's a Bachelor of Technology. And for UNB St. John, it's a Bachelor of Applied Management. So just to keep in mind that there is an opportunity to continue into university after you spend 2 years with us here at NSCC. Tuition and program costs. So base tuition for all of these programs we talked about today currently is $3,620, but there will be fees on top of that, and maybe we'll touch on that in the questions about what those fees might be. You can check them out at nscc.ca/program fees just to kind of get an idea of what you can expect to budget for if you join us. That being said, there are lots of bursaries available. So we have a fall award cycle and a spring award cycle. There's almost $4 million now of scholarships, so lots available. They're based on your academic standing, but most of them are based on your financial need and your community involvement. So you can take a look now, go to Student Awards site just to see what's out there. Again, when you're budgeting, just to know what bursaries might exist, especially for IT programs. I just wanted to mention quickly as well, if you are joining us, we do have housing available at some campuses. So if you're coming to a campus that's not close to your home, These are the campuses that currently have housing. We'll also have housing at the Ivany campus this fall, which is in Dartmouth. And then we have housing projects underway at a couple of other campuses as well. But right now for housing, we have these 5 campuses. And just a quick snapshot on how to apply to NSCC. You can go to nscc.ca/apply. You can fill out your application. You can pick up to 2 program choices. Just be sure to rank them first choice and second choice. And if there's seats available, you'll be offered a seat. If not, you'll be put on a wait list. Our wait lists do carry over each year, so you don't have to reapply if you're not offered a seat in this upcoming intake. But yeah, the application is pretty straightforward, but if you have any questions, you can always reach out. Excuse me. All right, let's get to some questions. Okay. Really great questions here. For the IT web programming, so this would be Sean, if he's still with us. And we may have touched on this, but if you could just repeat it. What programming languages are you working with IT web programming?
I'm still here.
Great.
My dad is ranking up big time. The programming was questions programming languages or the technologies. Is that what the question was?
Yeah, what programming languages are you working with in the web programming?
Yeah, so just like all the programs, we have a common first semester. So everyone will be learning an introductory programming language. I believe it's Python across the board with everyone. So we started with Python, we move into Java to learn more about object-oriented programming, and then JavaScript at the same time. That would be vanilla JavaScript, just no frameworks or anything. Well, no advanced frameworks anyway. And then move on to then after that we go on to, for server side, we do PHP and ASP.NET, depending on the campus. Some campuses might waiver that a little bit. I know a couple campuses might be doing JSP. And then for full stack, it's probably going to be either Angular or Next.js, potentially React at some campuses. There is a little bit of differences between the campuses because the faculty will teach to their strengths or whatever their experience is. If someone's an Angular expert in the field and they come in to be a faculty, clearly they're gonna, makes a lot of sense for them to teach Angular. But anyway, so that's pretty much the gist of it. Yeah, I think, and then, well, and then lots of tooling. Obviously, Git is a big part of what we work with. You do a lot of server technology because we need something to build our apps on. So you learn how to administrate and set those up. A lot of cloud tooling and DevOps comes into play as well, particularly in the final semester. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you. Okay, we have quite a few questions. So if we don't get to all of them, just be sure to email recruitment@nscc.ca and I'll connect you with the faculty that we have. Okay, next question. This is for IT data analytics, so that would be George. Do we learn code in this program? And if so, what languages? Could be similar to what Sean just said as well.
Yes, you will learn lots of code. So first thing you'll learn is to code in SQL, and you'll learn to code in SQL very well. You'll be, I wouldn't say an expert, but pretty darn good at coding in SQL for data. It's not optional for data, so you'll be good at that. You'll learn to code pretty well in Python, Java, JavaScript, and R. Those are kind of the languages that you'll be learning. So yes, another distinct difference between the database administration program and the data analytics program is that the data analytics program is within the grouping of programming programs. So whereas the database administration is within the systems group or cluster, is what it's called. So there is you will learn to program within data analytics. In fact, it's necessary because of things like web APIs. We have to download the data and we have to use the data. So that all has to be automated. So yes.
Okay, perfect. I am seeing a couple of questions here about your own applications, happy to answer them, but just send those through email. So send it to recruitment@nscc.ca, and we're happy to look into it and clarify some requirements. This one will go out to the group and whoever it applies to can answer. So it says, if I like working on physical systems like servers and building computers, which program would involve that the most? So if anyone's program really follows that or covers building servers and computers, you can.
So that would most likely be, I think you're going to touch on that a little bit in a lot of the programs, but that's the core of the systems management and security. When we talk about data centers, and the one we have for students online is all just servers and switches and routers and setting those up and how do they communicate. So if you like that real hands-on kind of tangible working on the physical server piece, that's definitely a systems management and security. And again, it's not that you won't do some of that in some of the other courses, but really that's the core piece to systems management and security.
Yeah,
And
if I
David,
just
you want to join in?
Yeah, if I just may add, so yeah, we have what we call pods. So in our classroom, we have a rack with a switch, and then underneath we have basically 4 high-end, I don't want to call them high-end PCs, but they're Xeon processors. So they have capability of running virtual machines. So that's how we do our hands-on. We build a little network. Because with the IT Generalist program, we're touching on all different areas, systems and networking and security and things like that. So each student will have basically their own little network. In addition to that, we obviously use virtual simulation software as well. One thing I do want to point out, I'm not sure if the way the question was presented, but in our program, we don't build PCs. So I just want to make it clear that we talk about hardware, we look at different components, but we don't teach you how to build a PC, because that's more of a hobby per se outside the classroom. Or mind you, there are dedicated hardware courses, but they're not offered in this program at the IT Generalist here at Straight. But we do have hands-on.
Great. A couple questions here about international admissibility, I guess. The programs are open to international students. There may be some exceptions though. So just check the program pages. It'll show at the top if there's seats for international students. That being said, the deadline has passed for this fall to apply for international students, but you're welcome to apply for the 2026-2027 academic year. Applications will reopen in September of 2025. Okay, back to George with data analytics. A couple questions here. Do we learn Tableau is the first question. And the second one is, I want to work with AI directly. Is IT data analytics a good choice for that?
So to answer the first question, I have made a strategic decision to do Power BI instead of Tableau. The reason being is the Microsoft infrastructure and how everything ties into Azure. So they're quite similar, they're different products, but so I have kind of leaned for data visualization towards Power BI. So you will build a Power BI server, you will build reporting, and the final project actually from data analytics is pretty all-consuming in the sense that it's you have to build a project that downloads API data and then stores it in a normalized database, in a structured database. Then you have to build some kind of predictive analytics that's built automatically, and then you have to present data in Power BI. So it's quite all-inclusive, and this has to be automated. So the whole process of predictive analytics and everything is integrated into Power BI, calling Python or R scripts for the prediction portion. So I tend to use Power BI, but Tableau is quite similar. So yeah, so hopefully that answers the question. The first one. The second one is AI. Yes, I strongly recommend taking the data analytics program for if you're interested in AI and machine learning. I think it's important though to differentiate between generative AI and machine learning and AI, the concept. So what the difference would be is one, most people would be familiar with ChatGPT or whatever tool you're using for large language models. So that's just a form of AI. So what we learn inside the data analytics program is focused on predictive analytics, so some statistics. So as I said before, for example, a student did a program where they predicted sentiment. So if you type into a browser, that restaurant really had terrible food. The predictive model behind will look at that text and say, yes, this is negative, or no, it's positive in terms of sentiment. So that kind of works. So you will be doing hands-on predictive analytics. You'll learn statistics, so inferential statistics, descriptive statistics, and you'll learn to build neural networks, and you'll learn to do classification and regression problems. So it is quite all-inclusive, but most importantly, you'll be focused on handling data and visualizing the data too.
Perfect. Okay, one question here about if there's an age barrier to apply for international students. There isn't. We welcome learners of all ages to these programs. Okay, I've skipped over a couple, so if I skipped over your question, be sure to email it to recruitment. The last question we will cover for today, and I'll open this to the floor, anyone who wants to kind of give a general answer. Asking about program fees. So I know on our website we list a certain technology requirement. I assume that's pretty important for these programs to have a certain maybe computer or operating system. If someone could just speak a little bit about what that might be, or any other fees that might be part of the IT program. So maybe a membership or certain software, that kind of thing. If anyone wants to pitch in, join in. I think we mostly work with Windows. Go ahead, Bree. Thank you.
That's all right. I didn't see anyone piping in. I thought I'll do. So that's going to vary depending on the program. So some programs, like you mentioned, are blended or remote. You're going to have that technology and that flexibility in the technology. Some programs, like the systems program, were very high resource. So you need a higher level of system available to you, but you don't necessarily need a laptop. Because we have high requirements, we do have systems. We're not blended, we're fully in person. We have systems on site that you can use. Plus we give you access to the servers and the switches and the routers that you need to have. One thing most or all of the programs do require, as far as technology goes, or fees go, is things like a portable drive, a solid state drive, or some kind of portable drive. Do we give you access for storage? Yes, but it's not usable for all of your coursework, especially when we do the virtualization pieces. There is no actual fees around subscriptions and stuff, at least not at this point, but there are a lot of programs that have textbooks, some have none. So it is best to go have a look on the site, see what program you are interested in taking, and then see what the requirements are for that site, because it will look different from program to program based on things like if it's blended, if it's in person, if it's online, and how much the more of the hands-on ones are going to have a higher requirement around technology, but it actually means we're going to supply a lot of that for you. When it comes to software, the college is really great at supplying whatever software you might be required for your job. There's no program that I'm aware of at this time that makes you pay for any kind of software license. We try and use software that is common with the industry. It might not be exactly what you're going to see, but it's going to be something that's very comparable to what you might see in industry, and something that is either licensed through us or available without a license.
Great.
Yeah, I might just add, I think Marie pretty much covered it all. I was just going to jump on and say flash drive, and in some cases, you know, it's not a hard rule, but removable external drive with high fast write speed. Sometimes those are great to have if you want to transport VMs, if you want to work off VMs, virtual machines on, you can store it on an external hard drive and then take it home. As far as personal PCs, if you do, again, you don't need to have a laptop or a desktop, but if you do choose to buy one, we do recommend at least, I would say, 32 gigs of RAM. The more memory you have, the better your system will work. But as Marie mentioned, we do have systems at our campus. You can certainly use it. I think we close at 9 p.m. at night. It's open pretty much 7 days a week. We also have remote access. We do have some platforms. Our internal platform that we have on in our lab can be accessible externally. So you don't necessarily have to have a high-end machine per se if you're, you know, if you're have some financial constraints. You could just buy a typical laptop and then remote in. So, and then our program actually does not require you to purchase textbooks. We use online textbooks through our library system, and we use a lot of material because the reality is with IT, things change. A few of my colleagues mentioned a few times programming language, for example. What you learn today may change tomorrow. It's the same thing with textbooks. A lot of textbooks, we use a lot of reference material online. For example, when we teach Linux, the operating system for Linux, we typically use Linux documentation that are online because they tend to be more up to date. So yeah, I just want to throw that out there in case people are inquiring about textbooks and stuff. Over to you,
Great.
Jessica.
Thank you. Okay, I think that's where we'll end our questions today, just to be respectful of everyone's time. There's been so much information shared today. So I hope you got a lot out of the session. Again, if you have any questions that come up anytime, you can email recruitment@nscc.ca, and we're happy to answer them. And yeah, I'd just like to thank our panelists today and everyone who was able to tune in and anyone who might be watching this after the fact. We hope to see you in one of our IT programs in the future. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great night.